let's talk about sex. This topic, actually before I start, I have to be honest. I have started and stopped this entry 3 or 4 times. I've done about 4 edits of this because I don't know where to begin. It is such a complicated topic, gay sex, that every time I get started, I get stuck and I don't know where to go from it. So this is a subject that could definitely take countless videos, hours of psychoanalysis, books, research, theses to unpick, but I'm going to give it a shot because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I've really been struggling with how much sex I should be having, the type of sex I should be having, how often, how adventurous. All these questions have been playing in my mind, and I think it's because I'm in my 30s, and when I was in my early 20s, I remember an older gay man telling me, you need to have as much sex as you can when you're young, because when you're older, you would have wished that you had had more. And so this thought of like age and getting older and wondering if I need to be explorative and promiscuous while I still can is something that I actually really want to do. Because to be honest, when it comes to sex, even though I feel that I'm quite experienced, I'm still as confused and in the dark as I was 15 years ago when I was a teenager. When you're growing up, you don't really have much knowledge or exposure to gay sexual education. I for one, can't recall a time when anyone ever sat me down and talked to me about the birds and the bees in the context of homosexuality. I think back to school when we were learning about sexual education and when we were learning about sexual health and protecting oneself against STIs. It was all within the context of heterosexual sexual relations. I do remember that when I got into high school, we got given this book in our PE, in our physical education class that was all about, puberty and growing up and friends and peer pressure and all those topics. And I remember flicking to the back of the book to the glossary of terms to find the word gay, and flicking to the page. There was like one page, and on that page it was one chapter about sexual relations and the feelings that you might have towards people of the same sex. And there was one line about gay sex, and it really shed no light whatsoever on the subject. And it wasn't like I was going to speak to my parents about it. It wasn't as if I had friends that I could go to or siblings. As a gay teenager coming into one's own, you don't have that much exposure to gay sexual education. When I think back to how I learnt about gay sex, it was mainly through porn. It was only really through porn, and then through exploration with other men as I got older. And then I wonder where those men learnt about gay sexual relations, whether that was something that they also had to discover themselves. So when I think about that, I feel like we're all in the dark. No one's really quite sure of what they're doing, especially when you're a teenager or in your early 20s. And it takes time and learning to really understand what you're doing. But with that in mind, and that thought of, should I be having more sex? Am I not having enough? Am I having too much? Is it not as exciting as it should be? Should I be having multiple partners? I'm at a bit of a moment in my life where I'm questioning everything there is, or everything that I've learnt about gay sex. And I think as a culture and as a community and as an identity, we need to question things that we've been taught. I'm all for going out there, having a great time, meeting someone, having a connection with them, being with them sexually, doing whatever makes you happy. But I've noticed that a lot of people aren't happy and feeling quite unfulfilled, feeling unsatisfied, feeling quite lost. I also think about the high rates of drugs and alcohol tied to sex and people's experiences with sex being very linked to drinking and drugs. And in all honesty, when I think about my sexual experiences, so many of them, if not the vast majority, when I've been out of a relationship, have been linked to alcohol. And that is somewhat worrying. I think about guys when you go to these big dance parties and everyone's really high and they're in this altered state of mind and they're looking for sexual release. Is that a type of masking real connection? Is that some inherent shame that we need to be high and we need to be drunk in order to go through with that sexual encounter or experience? I know I'm probably going round in circles here, but I'm trying to formulate in my mind an understanding of a healthy way forward when it comes to gay sexual relations. I mean, I know some people that are really quite sexually liberated and they're very comfortable in themselves, that they're able to have grinder hookups and enjoy that for the experience it is without feeling empty afterwards. Or feeling unsatisfied. They're quite in control of their sexual identity, and for that I'm really impressed. I'm really quite impressed. But I do know that there are quite a few people who don't have that and who seek out sex as a way to feel validated or as a way to feel loved or a way to feel boredom, and that isn't something that is enriching. So I guess my question or my thought is, do we need to reconsider what we've been told about sex? That as gay men, we should be having a lot of it, that because we can make up our own rules, we don't have the same commitments as straight people, we're not as afraid of getting someone pregnant, or the fact that sex is so readily available to us. All these things, should we be questioning them? Should we be looking at what we've been taught and wondering if it's the right thing, and starting a dialogue about what it means to have good sex, to have connections with people? I think the other thing that's been really playing on my mind as well is that sex is such a currency in the gay community. It's the reason that people go to gym and work on their bodies. It's the reason that you take your shirt off in a club. It's this very heightened awareness of your body and your hormones, and the fact that we can release them so easily because we're men, and we can find other men who are just as willing to partake in the activity as ourselves. Because of that, it's just something that is everywhere and constantly in our faces when it comes to Instagram, or when it comes to the way that gay parties are advertised, or even when it comes to the way that people support the gay community. It's always like naked rowers for, against homophobia, or it's shirtless firemen for gay rights. It's always this sexualized world, and it might not be working for us anymore. I feel with the way that the world's moving forward and the acceptance that we're feeling, we can come out of the nightclubs, and we can come out of the shadows, and we can come out of the gay bars, and we can be part of society, a society that's a lot more embracing. So do we need to still hold on to those, I guess, those behaviors that may have been passed on throughout generations of, trying to get laid when you have the opportunity because you might not have an opportunity again, or it being just about your body because you knew back in the day you weren't able to get married and you weren't able to be with a partner in open society. So you really brought your sexuality down to just sexual contact. I wonder if we need to look back at all of that and think, is now the time for us to start questioning the way that we experience sex? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and by all means, if you like sex and if it's good for you and if you feel great and uplifted and connected when you do it, then power to you. But if it's something that leaves you confused or empty, or if you're addicted to it, then it might be time for us and the community as a whole to look at how we connect.